It's a pleasure to be here in this more relaxed, comfy atmosphere towards the end of the 2 days. I would like to cover software updates in a more holistic way than usual. That is, not just how are we doing it, are we using a DLL, a web check for updates, but also what do we want? Like the user experience. Trust, let's not ruin that. Sales, are we trying to increase our sales, upsell, cross-sell? Things we can do independently of how we manage the updates. For example, little details on the website and on the installer. How to notify people about updates, balloons, emails, something in the application. Some results. I have some data showing different results with different approaches, really money results. And some things that can go wrong. People are usually quite interested to see how even Microsoft, Amazon, or Apple made some mistakes, which can be quite annoying. And by the way, I will give you my card at the end, and you can get the slideshow if you would like. Yeah? And I'll show also some third-party components, which can be an interesting alternative to doing your own things. So I'm Mike. I'll use the term update for free updates and upgrade for things you pay for. I'm an application developer myself. We also publish our software. I've been for 20 years. Doing both consumer software, retro gaming, so small prices, high numbers, cross-sells, upsells, and business software for big companies managing currencies. So we have a bit of both experience, and we need to update, of course, our applications as well. And I'm a very critical user myself. I'm a bug fixer. I'm not so much into what goes well. I like to look what's not so smooth. And now I would like to know about you. How many of you have a check for updates which the user can invoke in your application, for example? Looks like about half something in the application check for updates. And a self-check on startup, something like once a day, once a week. Again, a bit less. Do you have your own solution? Who has a third-party solution, like a DLL or something for check for updates? A couple. How many have more than one application, more than one product to sell? Okay, that's more than a third. So you see, updates can be an opportunity to also offer something else, but we must not abuse of this, and we'll see how this could be done. How many are Windows? So almost everyone. You also have applications on non-Windows, like mobile or Mac. Okay, good. Majority has Windows, I see. How many offer free upgrades forever?
Minor.
Okay, that's still 3. Yeah, because there's different approaches. And I used to do myself at the beginning. Free updates forever brings you a lot of friends. But at the end, as the market saturates, it's suffocating you. And my advice would be to get out of this condition. You promise to your users to give free updates forever, and you can not break this promise, for example, by doing a new premium version, and you can upsell them out of the free. But in general, my advice is to either do free minor updates, like 2.1, 2.2, 2.2, 2.3, and then for 3.0, 4.0 you ask for money. Or you can do for 12 months from the purchase date. Or I really call it a subscription. Subscription is a more explicit way, and it requires fewer steps. If the e-commerce provider offers a subscription, the card is charged automatically. And if the e-commerce provider is good, they also deal in a friendly way when the card expires and so on, and you can keep them active for longer. So also as we move into software as a service, cloud-based applications, subscription could be increasingly interesting. So I made this mistake of offering free forever. You know, when you're new, you think you need market share, but market share you can also have by having for 1 year a free minor updates. And so my advice to get more money at the end, because you need to survive and invest in your code, is to to get out of the free updates and do only the minor or subscription 1 year or so. Let's look at some example. You asked what software director is. Software director is this application we use internally. It's quite similar to Windows Update, but it can be customized in different ways, also with your own brand and so on. You can get it for free if you are interested. Here is the most familiar one for Windows users. It's Windows Update. It's good because it's well known, it's familiar, but it doesn't support our independent developer applications. Unless we write maybe drivers, in that case we can be on Windows Update. There have been talks about Microsoft possibly in a future version allowing developers into this system. Pecunia in the UK have a way to wrap installers into a service that can be checked with this, but it's a corporate solution. We don't know yet what the future may bring. A system like this would need to differentiate between free and non-free, updates, upgrades, subscription, minor, major, upsell, cross-sell, and right now it doesn't do that. You can do it web-based, in this case a sophisticated way, because it has an ActiveX control which can go and see things in different places in the register in the system. But again, it can get complicated. If you have multiple things, multiple old versions, sometimes you need a reboot, you need to do first one and then the other, and a lot of decisions, and users increasingly are tired about deciding, downloading, installing. Everything should be one click. They're getting used to this from the web and from new generations of applications. So the less decisions and the more one click. Google Chrome, we'll see later, they have their own open source way for updating their own components. Here we have it in the About dialog. This is a very fancy one. Maybe some places in Asia it was or is still popular. You can have it fancy. But again, it's different. Everyone is different. This is a very classic, traditional, informative dialogue. I like this. Again, here another one which is a multi-product. Here you can list multiple products. You can begin to upsell, manage multiple applications without interrupting for each one. Again, multiple applications, starting to offer something to buy in an upgrade offer, but again, still inside the application. Also, you can do it on the phone, of course. But it can get confusing. I mean, people are annoyed by so many interruptions. Diversity, balloons here, balloons there. In the last 10 years, it's been an increasing number of interruptions on the desktop, different ways to get the user's attention. So I think Microsoft, or we as developers, will increasingly appreciate alternatives to this. So we had 10 years of opportunities with the internet always on, but also 10 years of confusion, in my opinion, because there's been an explosion of many ways to offer updates with the internet, but also with updates came viruses, with the internet always on, increasing risks. So there's different ways to offer updates. We saw them in the video. There is a lot of interruptions. You sit down, you switch on your computer, you have 3 applications telling you need to update or you can update something. There's Java, there's Windows Update, there's a few applications you bought. And then while you work, again, you open something and again and again and again. It can get, as increasingly more developers do this, annoying. And then you go to the software conferences and the buzzword of the moment is software as a service on the cloud. And they tell you what? You talk about an application to update applications, whereas the application is dead. So we are still application developers. Competition, also in terms of not just money, but also time spent by the user, is increasingly in server-side things, whether that's Facebook or something, on another web server, on a mobile device. It's time taken away from us. It's a different model. We still do applications. So maybe we can get closer to that application experience in the cloud, which is always up to date, doesn't require updates, by having a smoother way to update our own apps, as long as we do apps. Also, if in the future we put our applications in the cloud. Having an update management system will allow us to update our application in the cloud automatically. There's some tricks you can do now by already having you install in a certain way that can also be used later if you sell it as a service in the cloud. So up-to-date applications are in general more similar to what customers are increasingly getting used to, because Facebook, they don't need to update. Whatever is server-based, they don't need to update. I like this sentence, because people are increasingly, like one click, they are getting annoyed by all the noise, all the messages they get, and a lot of times there is tricks to get the user's attention and do things that then only bring money to the vendor, and trust is becoming an issue. People are increasingly cynical and distrusting also of updates sometimes, or whatever comes in the mail. Or so we have the customer's trust. They bought our application, and I think everybody agrees, it's critical not to annoy our customer, because they are the ones who will buy again and again from us unless we give them free updates forever. And we must be careful with updates not to ruin that. Also, once you grab the attention of the customer with a balloon saying a new version is available, it's very tricky. We can mention something else, an upsell or cross-sell, but again, if we have 10 balloons in 1 hour of work wanting to sell us something, it really gets annoying. We got rid of all the pre-installed crapware, the stickers and everything, but then there's a balloon every 10 minutes wanting to sell us something. And also privacy. We had this issue with spam, of course, in the last 10 years, but now people are also increasingly aware of privacy. What data gets transmitted? As you have seen, everything gets analyzed, of course, what Facebook unique IDs or Office application IDs were transferred with the documents and so on. People want to know what is being sent from my machine. Is my license key being sent to the manufacturer? Can they revoke my license? I think we should be transparent about this, and we should decide ahead whether the update is or is not a mechanism to revoke a pilot license, for example. Or is it just a way to ensure safety, security, and a smooth quality experience? That's a decision to take. Again, you can see updates also from a security point of view. Antivirus companies are increasingly bombarding us with occasionally even terror-like messages that your system has to be secure. Users know this, and you can sell the update experience as something that brings in and maintains security, if you are aware of that. But then also you must be careful about the update experience itself. You must use maybe SSL or verify the code signing, because what if your trusted application becomes a way to bring in something bad? Now there's so many ways to update, which means so many points to enter the user system. The attack surface has widened. Yes, and of course sales. We are trying with the update experience not just to increase the security and the quality and the satisfaction, because updates are also an exciting moment. I always install almost everything, because it gives you these hopes of better, future, new, faster, whatever. But it's also an opportunity for a sale. If you have a better product, like middle, low-end, or premium, it could be a way to offer the premium version. Or at the end of the free update cycle, it could be a way to remind them that the user that there is something they can pay for to get more. For example, after 1 year, you have your new Track Tracker product, which I just bought. You will have to decide how to best tell your users that they can get something better. No? Just one example. I have some of many of you, and you may also have seen it in some screenshots. So, in general, some things we can do, and you don't need to take notes because these are, in part, I'll give you the presentation, but also obvious things, just putting them all in context. If you have an option for silent updates in your installer, like a command line option, it means that the same installer can be used by an update mechanism. So whether in the cloud later or whether now in a user interface like Windows Update that is just one click. So one click install, in my opinion, with no questions, is good to have a smooth update experience version after version, because I don't want to run the installer each time with the dialog and the questions and everything. And every little step I can take away improves the quality. So the installer should, in this silent mode, remember the options. If I decided not to put the icon on the desktop, I don't want it on the desktop after every icon, after every update. If I decided to go in a certain startup folder, menu folder, it shouldn't go to the root each time it updates, like many applications do. And so if it remembers these three things, it's not a lot, and it has a silent option to install, it's already nice, in my opinion. There's 3 pages you could standardize on a website because they are referenced by RSS feeds, by pad, if you use the pad spec, or even by update mechanisms. If you have a general product page, wonderful, but if you have also one page, what's new, users are increasingly expecting to have a place to find a list of new features. If they want to go there, there should be a place describing the new features only, and a general changelog. So these 3 points of view are useful to have because then they are referenced by different update mechanisms, by user expectations in general, by PAD, by RSS, by web links, and on the side they're searched for. I briefly covered 3 ways to notify the user about the update. One is very simple. Check for updates, goes to the website knows from the URL what version it is. Or it could be the application that informs the user, look, there's a new version of me. Or the traditional email, which is still the most effective for many things. Standalone updater, some of the technologies I briefly mentioned, like Google Omaha or third-party solutions, they can check for updates for multiple applications, and they're standalone. So the notification originates from the update checker. And we can have different ways to have feeds do the work for you. But already you see that these are forcing us developers to put the same information in different places. Many of us have to maintain the same texts in the pad, in the RSS, in the custom update mechanism we did. So it's a lot of work. And the W3C is also working on push mechanisms, and Microsoft may be working on an app store, and we'll see what comes out of this. Of the 3 approaches I mentioned, web-based, application-based, and email, let's briefly look at advantages and disadvantages. Of course, having a check for updates in the help menu is very easy to implement. You just put the version name in the address, and the web page you maintain says you are up to date or not. Easy to maintain, easy to implement. It's not active. It doesn't tell the user there's a new version. If the user forgets about your software, maybe because there's a feature that was missing, and you would like to tell the user, he's never going to know. Privacy also. It's a minor thing, but we are increasingly getting aware about this. But a check for updates over the web tells the server what is installed. It may become increasingly an issue. We'll see. So at least let's be aware of this. From the application, which means I run the software, and the software does once a day, once a week, or whatever, a check and tells the user. It can be a much better experience for the user if it's all these steps I told before. One click, smooth, no decisions. It's active, so it's better. Possible disadvantages, many more, because you have so many cases to maintain. In the web-based, they just download an installer. Okay, you have to convince the user to download something, run it again, and over and over. Depends how many updates you do in a month. It can be a lot. If you do it application-based, you must exit yourself, restart from where you were, maybe manage the balloons or whatever way to notify the user. If you have multiple products, each product must be aware of each other. It can be interesting. And then again, you can have the privacy concern. If the application is sending data about itself to the server, these are all touching the trust point. And again, and there have been a lot of recent cases, even there were articles mentioned in the recent, what was this, the worm allegedly targeting the Iranian nuclear power plant, attacking Siemens systems. And well, there were some articles where it was mentioned how once we trust certain update mechanisms, they too can be increasingly vectors of attack, because unless the update check and download is secured, you can inject fake data, you can inject fake executables, and so your own trusted application becomes a way to bring in malware if you are famous enough that you are an interesting target. Email, good old email is the best way to sell. Still, by far, in my opinion, and we'll show some charts now. Many users change email address, that's true, but also many users change computers. With email, you connect to the user directly, even after the user maybe stopped using your application or changed computer. So it's good to have an email for major upgrades, in my opinion, always. You can send information that is verbal. It doesn't need to be boxed in a little container saying a version and then date and a short text. It can be a nice dialogue. And if you do the emails as in something informative that doesn't look like spam, usually they have a very high response rate from those same trusted users we mentioned at the beginning. They trusted you, and they're generally loyal, but they will buy again different versions. Now, you cannot use an email every week or every month if you do minor updates. Some applications I use myself, I'm a bit annoyed by these emails. Spam filters are a big problem. Also, users changing addresses. Maybe both users increasingly use Gmail, they're more stable now, spam filters matter. But you must do a lot of work to keep your email lists clean, because you will be ranked high as a spammer also based on the incorrect addresses you send, so you must manage your bounce lists. In some countries like Germany, it's especially complicated to get the approval if you go through an e-commerce provider and they have an opt-in and the customer doesn't check that, which is disabled by default. You're not really supposed to email the customer. Also, some of the e-commerce providers I worked with and you two work with, if you check the contract, they say that the email addresses, they're not really yours. You're not supposed to contact the user. The emails, they are the e-commerce providers. Most do not, but some do. A large company that's not here this year has this contract. So I will compare two examples. I was very curious about, we do a lot of testing, like A/B testing in different months of the year, day of the week, weather, all these things we test. And so that's a traditional mailing. The red bar stands out. For an update, we do twice a year mailing like this. And for a one product, major version or something similar, and you see sales are of course higher, and then following month you have a remainder, and then it goes back to normal. So you get 4 times usual sales when you have a major upgrade in a month. What happens if instead of an email I push a notification via the application? So email only. This is email only. In a month we release this. What instead if I have the application tell the user that there's a new major version? And so we tried, in 1 month we did an update within the application and on the social networks, but no press release, only our Twitter and Facebook users and from the application. And then we waited 1 month, and in June we did the mailing. You see, the mailing still wins by far. So I always will recommend to also keep a good, clean list, to learn to put something interesting and new and informative in the email, so that it's welcome as something not spam, but really tell them something new they don't know already, and put at the beginning and at the end of the message a link to buy, and repeat that. And then after 1 month, maybe try again, because you will get another peak like this. When you do a mailing, at least after a few weeks, a month, if they those who didn't upgrade, do it again. It's incredible. When we started doing this, we said, oh, why didn't we do that before? So now let's look at some of the things that can go wrong. This is the Amazon Kindle, and as you may remember, what they did is things that people already had bought via the update mechanism were removed remotely. And of course they apologized, but it touched the trust. People now are more careful about these things. By the way, it happened with Orwell's titles, among others. So Orwell 1984 was the object of something quite Orwellian here. And they apologized, but still, it showed that you can take away, and it takes away also some trust. So what if, as you said, I install something with Windows Update and these new drivers blue screen every time, but I was trusting this. What if your application doesn't run and doesn't update anymore because you did something really wrong? That's a good way to shoot yourself in the foot. You can avoid it by doing updates to a small group first, 1% or whatever. There's a way to random test of smaller group. The security issues we already mentioned. They trust you, but somebody is using you as a backdoor for malware. The privacy again, transmitting data, it will be increasingly a problem. You cannot expect your data that you send to be private. They will analyze it and publish it soon or later. I will show some examples. Here, if you have QuickTime installed, you have this Apple Update dialog. This dialog started at some point also offering, as an update, Safari. But I have Internet Explorer. I love Internet Explorer. Why is it? And people just don't read, of course, as we just said, they click, click, click. And so they install Safari by mistake, or corporate customers were annoyed by this because they had all the desktops well managed, but then they had this virus called Apple Software Update offering a new browser. So of course Apple reacted and they changed this. You see? At the beginning it was on top under new software, and then they created a new section, not updates but new software. But the first it was deceptive in a way. So a big company like Apple tried to intentionally push this as something new, an update, and then they changed their mind. Or maybe I'm using Windows Live Messenger. This is a different problem. It says I must update, otherwise it doesn't work anymore. That's strange. Why? I don't want to update. But it says I must in order to continue. That's also not a good experience. Or here, this is the day, weeks ago. This is a server. This is Windows 2008 R2 server offering me Live Essentials, which on a server you don't need. It is offering me this not once, but twice, 2 different versions, because it's the new 2011 version just released. Why on earth? Again, these are all minor annoyances. As I said, I'm quite critical, but one after the other, these little things are annoying. You can install Windows Live Essentials if you want, but offer it as a separate download. Don't push it with Windows Update on a server computer. Or let's say as a user on my desktop, I trust the normal Windows Update. I'm an honest user, so when I read something like this, I'm curious and see what is this. Oh, it updates Windows activation technology. Cool. I have everything genuine, of course. It was my own notebook, actually. I had a BizBug account because the company was, So, what? I installed the updates, and now it says, you must activate today. This was my trust, an honest computer, real license. And what if tomorrow I have a speech? How can I need to take the train, and it says, the activation server terminal has been blocked. Why? Victim of software. Good, but that's me from BizBug. I got the license from Microsoft. They just blocked some licenses by mistake. It's a common issue in the forums. But again, the trust was abused. And all these experiences, one after the other, are a problem. So, and it said today, it wasn't true. So, we spoke about abusing or respecting the trust of our users. But as developers, would we trust a component that manages updates for us? I mean, we saw that there's a lot of work in updates. The notification system, the check, the secure check, verifying the signature, multiple applications, creating a nice user interface. Would we trust a company to provide something that we could use? Well, if the application is successful, the same application is used by a lot of people, so we can ride a wave of something successful, like Windows Update. Why not? But it has to be successful. It's also less work if it's well done. I only have to update my version every now and then. I point to the text I already have in some pad or RSS. Good. Somebody other than me already worked on the anti-malware recognition, so they get through the firewalls because they recognize the safe, the signature is safe, the data is downloaded in a way that is generally not blocked. So can you have all of this trust from users because the application is well written, from developers because they trust the application, the in-check from the application, multiplications to upsell and cross-sell. What if you lose control over the updates? For example, download.com has an application, but it's not the only one. There's a few companies doing that. They manage the update information for you. They have an update application where the version information doesn't come from us, the developers. It comes from information that the local application from crowdsourced user base sends to the server. And then the server says, oh, there's a new version I should maybe see, and also the staff, the editorial staff knows there's a new version. So without us knowing, as developers, somebody else is telling our users that there's a new application. Personally, I prefer if I post on my web server something about a new version. So I want to be in control of when to push. Sometimes I make a mistake after a few hours. We said, let's not push everything to all users. If something bad happens, I want to block and revert, and I want to have this control. And of course, can we trust the guys doing the application? So in general, it could be good. Maybe if Microsoft, if Google, if others did this. Well, if you have a .NET application, there's a way to do the check for updates. If you have a Silverlight application, that is also has an integrated check for updates. Google has a very interesting open source project they're now using for all the applications. It's called Omaha. It's quite similar to our software. FlexNet Connect. You know, you recognize the company FlexNet? It changed name 3 times. It used to be StoreShield, no? Then it became Macrovision. Then it became Acresso, and now it's FlexNet. They changed 4 names in a couple of years or so. But also they had a very expensive but interesting solution. Secunia, the personal and the corporate version of the software, is the wrap I mentioned at the beginning of the speech. It takes an existing update installer, wraps it into something compatible with the Windows update services, and it allows for corporations who have their own Windows update server locally, it allows to push updates in that way. But maybe they have a plan. Maybe they want to get acquired by Microsoft. Who knows? Software Rector is the one we are using in Canary, and the one I showed you of dialogues. It seems from some job posts from Microsoft, and also it's obvious by the need, the things I just mentioned, Microsoft is smart as well. Maybe Windows Update will broaden, but still they have to take into account the things we mentioned. Major, minor, cross-sell, upsell just for us. Maybe subscriptions taking into account when it was bought. And then there's an increasing talk of app stores. The mobile devices have shown that an app store is a good way to maintain a healthy ecosystem of applications, also to manage updates. So, as you just saw, Apple not just has the iPhone App Store, it is also now an application store for normal Microsoft software. There's rumor that Microsoft might be doing the same. So, we are reaching the end now. This is, as I said, the one we've been working on, Software Director. So you can see it's somewhat similar to Windows Update. It has only one button. It can show you free updates, non-free, meaning where you pay. Only the free ones are pre-checked by default. So when you see this normally, you want just click the big button. There's a cross-sell opportunity to mention other software. And you can customize it with your logo. So you can invoke it from your start folder or from your application and you get something fully branded with you. So that's about it. Thank you for listening. If you have questions, come here. I think we have a few minutes maybe. I don't know how tight we are because we started late, but I respected the original plan, I think. If you want to know about other tools or teach us something you are doing that's not being covered. Something. Okay, for corporate applications, for security issues, in my opinion, people are getting used to a regular once a month schedule, unless it's really something critical. But the problem is, if your application is widely deployed in companies where somebody is managing, it's good to be able to plan for this. So Oracle, Adobe, and others have recently started following Microsoft and offering fixed once per month updates on a certain day. So that has some merit, I think. If it's a bug, people are always happy. If it's a non-intrusive way, I would do it when you can. Also, depending on what's coming next, only you can know that. But in the corporate environment, I have seen this once a month trend increasing for reasons of planning this.
Not a question, but probably just an idea for discussion. When we deal with registration keys, we have two options. One option is, as you told, to do everything automatically. So your software will contact your server and find out if the license of the user is still active or not,
yes.
And will automatically update or not update. And another option is that you send notification to your user that you need to update, and you put a new software on your website, and then I'm sure you will have a lot of emails. For instance, some older user will write, okay, I have downloaded the version from the website and it don't work. Yeah?
You should warn the user that by installing a major upgrade on something that only had minor upgrade privileges, or something after the expiration period, ideally no later than at the installation time. For example, you install QuickTime Update and it tells you, look, you paid the license for version 6. You're going to lose the registered features if you install version 7.
I guess
so
don't read this.
You're right.
Next.
That's why I think it should be here, free, not free.
And
so it's clear.
In this case, your application will to contact your server
okay.
to find out if this license
Good
is
question.
active or not. And user will have a warning from firewall. And
yeah.
So what is, in your opinion, what is better? To answer a lot of emails by support when people ask why version don't work, or to deal with this situation with firewall?
You mentioned a few issues. One is privacy, sending the data. This application is an example of how you don't need to send the data, because it receives the information of what's available. It doesn't send what is installed. It analyzes locally, so it doesn't send information. It also does the date check locally, so it's privacy conscious. What was the other aspect you mentioned?
The first, what you told, yes, that firewall will...
the firewall, yes. The firewall, there's things you learn over time. What is better for firewall? For example, we use a plain text file, txt, because we saw that it's better than any XML or so. Then you still have issues like, are we going to verify a digital signature or something to increase this. But also, if the application is trusted, it will be recognized by Microsoft and other firewall providers as a trusted application. That's, again, riding the wave of a successful application. And they recognize our digital signature now. They recognize the software. It has a logo testing. And as such, even in the new Internet Explorer 9, there's a new ranking system. It passed. So you don't have to fear this. It's one of the benefits if you have a trusted application provider. But yes, you can work around that in different ways. And it has to be optimal. And if you have questions, email me. We can see how we can do it best with your application. Yeah. So, but yeah, if you want this, you can get this for free, just to play with it. So.
Worried.
Sorry?
Oh, you got me worried. I always trusted, Microsoft updates. But now you got me worried. What if somebody can possibly hack into the system and present themselves as?
Microsoft uses.
Is it protected by some sort of?
Microsoft uses SSL to transmit the data and digitally signed caps. So they do.
Have you heard of any breaches?
From other providers, yes, they're documented. I mean, if you just query HTTP data and download from updates, not intentionally malware. Of course, a bad driver that crashes something, yes. But I've heard from others, only they were theoretical things. So you have security advisories when a check for update is HTTP only and doesn't check the signature. For example, this application here, it uses plain HTTP, but to update itself, it checks the digital signature. So it locally does the work to verify that the publisher is the one that is trusted. But yes, this exists. And even, for example, Digital River, they sign applications that are not signed. So you trust the digital signal by Digital River, but then it doesn't mean trust anymore because they trust everything. It's tricky. I would like to try, as I said, I would like to talk about updates in a holistic way, and we must be more aware of issues like privacy, trust, reputation. So what our goals are, not just how we update with a DLL or website. Well, I think we can wrap it up. If you want to have my contact information here, you can have the presentation if you would like. And yeah, good. Thanks for being here. You want to take a picture? Yeah. Okay.